Peace, love, robots.
So I'm only going to record this once, and then I'm going to add it to every show going forward. Well, going forward for a few months, at least, because I'm doing a contest. A contest. Why? Well, I want to get more listeners, and sometimes you have to bribe people to do that, and I'm going to bribe with a prize. We'll get to the prize in a minute. Anyway, I started this show on September 9th of 2020. So during my 52nd episode, which will be around that time in 2021, I'm going to do a drawing. How do you get in? Well, you got to write a review of this podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. That means you can write it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find it, because it's everywhere, right? Even Audible. And what you got to do is you can send me a link to that review along with the text and your name. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that review or your name in a little hopper, one of those things you turn around that you see at the bingo game where grandma goes. Yeah, that thing. I'm going to put it in one of those things, a metaphorical one, because I don't really have one. It's impractical to own a hopper like that. It really doesn't make any sense to own one, but it's a metaphorical hopper. But that's besides the point. Okay, so you're going to be entered into the hopper whenever you send me a link to a review that you do. So there's no limit to that. If you want to review it in multiple places, do that. And you get your name in the drawing for every one of those reviews. Yeah. And the other thing is you could share the show. Yeah, you could just tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your grandma, anybody. Don't tell your grandpa, because grandpas don't really know what podcasts are. At least older grandpas. I've discovered that there's people my age that are grandpas now, and they probably know what podcasts are. But there's not many of us in my age group that are grandpas. But you can tell them, I guess. If your grandpa's cool, you can tell them about this podcast. So if you tell them and they let me know by being a new listener, they can send me an email at the address, which I'll mention later on. And you can tell me who told them about the show, and I'll enter both your names into the hopper. Yeah, so there's no limit to the number of times you can enter. And the more people you refer and the more reviews that you post, the better your chances are to win the prize. Questions going to be directed, along with your links and all that other stuff, to peaceloveandrobotspod@gmail.com. That's peaceloveandrobotspod@gmail.com. And, you can send me questions too. Yeah. There are restrictions. Of course, mostly if you don't live in the U.S., you can't enter. And the prize, well, the prize, it's going to be a $50 gift card to Amazon. Buy whatever you want. So, yeah, get out there, review the show, share the show. Let me know how you do. And we'll get some names in there. It's going to be fun. Hello and welcome to Peace, Love, and Robots, a podcast about anything and everything and all that's in between. I am your host, Jeremy, and this is episode number 33 for April 21st, 2021. 2121. My wife said that I am too loud in my intro, and she's sitting right next to me, and I'm feeling very self-conscious now that I should be a little quieter. Maybe put on my my NPR voice. I don't even listen to NPR, but I think it sounds a little bit like, "Good afternoon. The temperature is now 33 degrees. The time is 30 minutes past the hour. Coming up next, we have Beethoven's Fifth Symphony by the London Philharmonic Orchestra." Something like that, I think. Maybe I need Garrison Keillor to come in here and teach me how to do Prairie Home Companion. Anyway, As always, this podcast is brought to you by the ads you hear at the beginning and end of the show. So if you listen all the way through, I'll forever be in your debt. Kind of threw myself off with that NPR voice thing. Before I go any further, why not give you a writing update? No, I can't do that. I can give you a writing update, but I can't do that NPR voice. I don't think it would work very well for this. But I do want to give you a writing update. So how'd I do? Drum roll, please. 2,166 words. Yeah, not a round number, because remember, spare change counts. It's going to add up eventually, right? And that's not bad for only having written a couple of days or a couple of times last week for, a couple hours at a time. Every word does count. So get out there and write. If you want to write, write. Make stuff. It's good for the soul. More on that later. Just a quick note. I did change podcast categories. I know you probably didn't notice. And it's probably not good for promotional reasons or growth and engagement or any of that marketing talk that I don't understand. I mean, what's an impression? I know there's impressions where, I can, do Yoda's voice or, yes. I don't know. That's not the impression they're talking. I don't know what that is or engagement, but I look at those stats on Spreaker and think to myself, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too dumb for that. But I figured, this is not a comedy podcast. It really isn't. As much as I want it to be, I did do stand-up comedy for a bit, but I would never call myself a comedian. And that was long before I launched this show. And I found myself recording more than just jokes. And I'll throw in a playful jab here and there, and I hope it lands. I hope people laugh. But if anything, this show turned into like an audio blog where I sort of wax poetic or vent about the things I'm thinking about on that particular week. And occasionally I'll drop a pearl of wisdom or insight, whatever. I'll review a book, something like that, offer advice or encouragement. So that's not always funny. And so I didn't really think that comedy was the best category for this show. Of course, there's the title. The title of the show is Peace, Love, and Robots. And what the heck does that even mean? I could tell the story, but it's a long story. I'll make it incredibly short by saying it was just a weird phrase I thought up over 14 years ago when I was in an art class. I thought, why not juxtapose something completely absurd with two completely unrelated terms? I was, and still am, obsessed with robots, so it just worked for me. Plus, a show can't be about anything, everything, and all that's in between unless it has a completely random name. So that works. It's kind of like a journal. So I changed from the comedy category, which is a giant ocean of podcasts. I mean, look at the top 20 comedy podcasts, and someday you can go ahead and look it up. And they're all professional comedians because, once the pandemic hit, they didn't really have a place to go tell their jokes. And, of course, they were doing that before. Every comedian pretty much has their own podcast or they're guesting on podcasts with their friends. And I didn't think I was going to ever break in there. So this is no longer a comedy podcast, quote unquote. It's a personal journal, which, quite frankly, I didn't know that category existed. So welcome to Peace, Love, and Robots, the personal journal. Actually, that sounds more like an NPR title. Welcome to Peace, Love, and Robots, the personal journal. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, enough about that. What was I thinking about this week? Well, I was thinking while I was driving, which I'm known to do, about consumption. We're all consumers, whether we like it or not. We consume food, we consume drink, we consume media, and a litany of other things. We are all consumers. But how many of us are producers? I was thinking in particular about my current consumption of media. Social media, or movies, television, books. The list goes on and on and on. My diet is full of this stuff. And then I started to think of this stuff in terms of food. I've mentioned before that I've been trying to eat a little better, lose a few pounds, and hopefully take care of my heart issue. And as I've been doing that, I had a bit of an epiphany about my relationship with food. I used to eat just to eat. I'd have a snack while I was driving, or while I was recording this podcast, or writing, while watching TV, or just sitting on my phone. I'd constantly eat, even when I wasn't hungry, when I was full. Of course, one could gain weight and be less healthy if they kept doing that, so go figure, right? Anyway, what if I took that and applied it to my consumption of media? I'm not the first person to notice that there's a lot of stuff out there. I lost count of the number of streaming services that we have in my house. I have a queue on every single one of them that I doubt I will ever work my way through. Hours and hours of stuff to watch, but nothing appeals to me. There was a song actually by, I think, Bruce Springsteen, about 57 channels and there's nothing on. Yeah, that's me. I would just scroll and never really pick anything. Ask my wife, she'd make me mute the TV as I was working through my Fire Stick, and it'd be clicking through everything. I'd have to mute it in order to do that, because I would end up just stopping and watching something I've watched dozens of times just to watch something. Why choose something new? Something new would require an effort. It'd require my full attention. It'd require investment and appreciation. And I don't have that to give, at least not right now. And why is that? Because I'm full. I don't need to watch anything. I'm full. I need to burn off some calories in order to take in some more. And you know what? That worked. I wrote more in the last 2 weeks than I have in probably a month or two. And I've also been able to finish reading a couple of books that I started back in January. Consumption, creation, consumption. That's a good cycle to be in. Have you ever felt that way? That full feeling with food or media or anything else? Do you scroll and scroll, unable to find something to entertain you? Have you already thought about the next podcast you're going to listen to after this? I don't know. It's something I've been thinking about. And I wonder if it's just me. What about you? Let me know by sending me an email at peacelovingrobotspod@gmail.com. That's peacelovingrobotspod@gmail.com. Or you can leave me a voicemail at my lonely voicemail, 585-371-8986. That's 585-371-8986. When I hear from you, I just might share it on the next episode. Just remember, keep it clean. Peace, love, and robots. Madge, I soaked in it.
That's robotica.